Welcome back, my fellow heavyweight boxing fans. And in case you missed it, on October the 9th, 2021, we had the fight to finish them off all for the trilogy between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, that long-lasting rivalry between the two for the WBC heavyweight championship. Obviously, this was contested in Las Vegas, America. And as we know, now Tyson Fury has won one of the greatest fights in history of boxing. Pretty much in heavyweight boxing, I'd say also. And, you know, this is an epic fight. We've got lots to talk about, lots to review, and obviously, you know, just want to congratulate Fury before I get started. So congratulations, GYPSY King. So this fight certainly lived up to the hype pretty much from the first bell. You know, the guys went to war on one another straight away, and you know, it was incredible to see just how much of a battering the pair of them took on one another. What was great was that the fact it wasn't just one fighter being dominant. It was pretty evenly matched at certain points, and no one was looking like they were going to win it up until the fourth round. So, you know, Wilder here makes his ring walk. He was pretty late, to be fair, keeping Fury waiting. Maybe it's a little bit of psychology there, but nonetheless, he came in, was ready. And as you may see here, he wasn't wearing any heavy clothing. So no excuses there, mate, for what may have affected you or impeded your performance. When Fury makes his walk out, as you can see here, he's full Spartan mode. With AC/DC in the background, so he turns it into like a rock concert, and what an entry for the ring walk. So obviously, going into this fight, like I said, these two, you know, had a lot riding on it. They, you know, they've had such a big rivalry here, and you can see here in the eyes, particularly in Fury, the serious look is there. So anyway, round one, Wilder pumps out some consecutive jabs to the body, but he keeps missing his target. I'm going to do a full analysis separatist brief one, by the way, guys. So round two, we then have Wilder and Fury landing 1-2 rights right before the bell. Quite a couple nasty ones, actually. And Fury keeps trying to make use of his weight advantage, but Wilder manages to land a big right hand, just for the end of that round. In round three, Wilder does start strong, but Fury managed to drop him. The American does get back to his feet, but then he's very, very wobbly. I think that heavier frame, the upper body, definitely made a significant impact there. Fury actually gets dropped twice by Wilder, but managed to get to his feet both times, because as we know, you can knock the big man down, but he's just got a heart of a lion and somehow manages to get back up onto his feet, despite the fact we know Wilder's got a very powerful punch. In round five, a nasty 1-2 lands from, obviously, Fury, who's got Wilder in quite a lot of trouble, to be fair, but then Fury himself is actually wobbled again. In round six, Wilder lands a number of shots, but Fury does end that round by landing a sickening flurry. And then as we move into round seven, a big right hand lands for Fury before a flurry rocks Wilder with just a minute left to go on the timer for that round. And then in round eight, two huge right hands stagger Wilder, but somehow he manages to stay on his feet. So, you know, again, I mentioned about obviously Fury having the heart of a lion. Wilder certainly has some heart there as well. The ref understandably calls a timeout while he checks with the doctors that Wilder's okay to continue, because obviously, you know, he is looking very light on his feet and a bit wobbly. In round nine, Fury walks Wilder back and he starts beating him, you know, to the punch in every exchange. But a nasty uppercut does land for Wilder in that clinch. And then in round 10, Fury drops Wilder with a vicious right hand, you know, but he beats the count and lands a big hook and straight before getting rocked again. And then finally in round 11, Tyson Fury manages to knock Deontay Wilder out cold, ending the fight and, you know, finishing him off once and for all. The GYPSY King retains his title as the #1 heavyweight in the world, and, you know, rightfully so. So, what a great fight. Obviously, like I said, I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a moment. Obviously, also what's to come for Fury moving forward. Is he going to retire? Is he going to fight Usyk? Or is he going to fight someone else? So, lots to talk about. Let's get cracking on that part. So, Fury himself, you know, as I mentioned briefly, he was actually... he had to pick himself up the canvas twice. You know, he was knocked down twice by Wilder. But obviously, it was 3 times in total for Wilder going down. So, you know, like I said very early on the beginning of the video, they were quite evenly matched, you know, up until about the 4th or 5th round. And then it started to change and obviously go in Fury's favour, and we could see where the fight was kind of going. You know, Wilder was battered down in the third, and it looked like it was going to be an early night for him. However, like I mentioned, in the 4th round, things were taking a bit of a change at times, and obviously somehow Fury managed to survive a battering from Wilder. But as we know, with Fury, he's got more skill and more power, which is, what allowed him to basically collapse Wilder, particularly in that 10th round. And no disrespect to Wilder, he's a very good boxer, and Fury has said that at the end of the fight and prior. You're a good fighter. You're the second best, and I'm the best in the world. And I think that's not even arrogant. It's just a fact. And unfortunately, Wilder is still a very bad sport. He's a really sore loser, and he's got quite poor emotional intelligence, in my opinion, to not accept that and embrace it. He lost to the better man 3 times, in my opinion. We all know about the controversy of the draw. Let's face it, Fury won 3 times. End of the conversation. What I will say about these two is that I think they are very similar. They've come from similar backgrounds, and they're real fighters. They're real warriors. This was a proper boxing fight. It was also a fighter's fight. These guys weren't just dancing around each other. They weren't just trying to hit and then not be hit. They were quite happy to take the hits, and they were hard hits. They weren't just little light touches here and there, kind of like how AJ was with some of his opponents in the past and previous fights. Even Usyk, the way he like runs around people and like gradually wears them down. But these two just went all out on one another, and it wasn't just fists flying everywhere. There was still skill there, still precision, technique, tactics, etc. And I loved it. I'm sure everyone else did. This is one of the best heavyweight fights I think I've ever seen, and a great end to finish the trilogy. Fury didn't have to fight him, really. It had been delayed such a long time and then delayed again. They had a long break in between the last fight. We're looking at 18 months at least. So it was great to see it finally happen, and it was sensational. A lot of people didn't think it would happen, and it has happened, and thank God it has, because the man Fury himself has proven that he is the best, and he deserves to be the best. And like I said, no disrespect to Wilder. The fact he managed to knock Fury down so many times definitely troubled Fury. He was clearly rattled, and he wasn't thinking to himself, I've got this in the bag easily. This is going to be a challenge, and that's what you want as a fighter or an athlete. You want a challenge. You don't want to just go in there and annihilate the competition. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the motive? Like, what's the motivation in that? If you could just win easily, you're just going to want to retire. Kind of like Khabib did in UFC. He felt like he had no one that worthy to challenge him, so he was just bored of it. Fury certainly wasn't bored of fighting this guy, because he was just as hungry as the first 2 times they both were. So a couple of things you guys and girls should know. Tyson's now been handed a medical suspension following obviously the win. I'm not too sure how long that's for, but I'm sure he's happy to chill and enjoy time with his family and whatnot. Meanwhile, obviously Wilder, he's been handed a 6-month suspension by the NSAC. I just want to quickly add to that, actually. The Nevada State Athletic Commission have actually given Fury a standard 45-day suspension. So that's obviously how long he's going to be out of fighting for the moment. And so realistically, Wilder's not likely to fight anyone until probably April next year. So that's what we're looking at for there. Whereas Fury, as we know, there's a lot going on between. Is it going to be Usyk or is it going to be AJ still? Is that going to happen? Just quickly here's a little bit of psychology that Fury had against Wilder with his corner chair saying "Big Dosser." Just such funny jokes, so much banter. That's what I love about Fury. He's an athlete, but he's also a funny guy as well, always taking the piss and always trying to get into people's heads in some way or another. And I'm sure Wilder's going to be haunted by Fury for the rest of his life, just on things like that, because it's just absolutely hilarious. So Fury said he's actually just got one fight left on his contract with Top Rank and ESPN, so he's going to see what's going to happen. But he's pretty much said he's one fight away from retirement, and I think he is ready to hang up the gloves, because he's done all he wants to do, really achieve in his career, and he's getting older and he's got a family, and I think Paris is probably pressuring him to just take a step back now, like maybe focus on coaching or something else, because what does he need to prove? He's done so much in his career. It's just like, what more does he need to do? So obviously Wilder was taken straight to hospital after the fight to check, do some scans on his head and hands, because there's some apparent issues with his fingers. He did actually make a statement here at the end of the fight that he did his best, but he wasn't good enough. So he did actually backtrack on what he originally said with regards to hating on Fury and not respecting him and not respecting the fight in general. So he's not going to retire. His team has said that he still wants to be in the sport, and he's looking at fights, particularly for someone like AJ, for next year. So we'll see if that happens, but I'm very sure that's not going to be the case. I very much doubt that's going to be the case. And I don't think AJ could even beat Wilder anyway. Put up some stats as well for you guys here. So for the total punches landed, etc., within the actual fight itself. So, you know, only 30 difference in the punches thrown. Obviously, you know, like I would say pretty close, to be fair, in terms, but jabs obviously significantly different for Fury. So here's a comparison photo here from obviously their last fight, and here we go again with the new fight. So it's always, unfortunately, Wilder on the bad receiving end of Fury's might. So congratulations, Tyson. Can't wait to see what's going to happen for you if you're going to have another fight with someone new. And whether it's going to be Usyk or AJ or someone else, we will find out in the next few months, I imagine. So sit back, chill, enjoy this time, and we look forward to seeing you again. So well done and commiserations to Wilder. And so that leads me on to the WBO's heavyweight mandatory challenger, Usyk versus Anthony Joshua. Obviously, we know Joshua up to that point was the second times heavyweight champion for the WBA, Super, IBF, WBO and IBO. And this was billed as the perfect storm and took place on the 25th of September 2021 at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, UK. And I've actually spoke about these two with potential fight in the past in another video, which we'll link at the end of this description for this video, where I discuss about all the challenges and, you know, the road that AJ would have taken to obviously fight Fury, which obviously fell through, as we know. And then AJ has actually fought in order, like I predicted and what was scheduled anyway from the other video, where he had Pulev in December and now obviously Usyk for this fight. And unfortunately for AJ, as we all know, he lost to Usyk. Usyk winning by unanimous decision, 117 to 112. The scorecards 116 to 112 and 115 to 113. And I'll be honest with you, I was not surprised by this in one bit whatsoever. Despite Usyk's like incredible CV, you know, he's now obviously 19 to 0 losses and 0 draws with 13 KOs, obviously being a road warrior, 10 championship fights in a row on the road in 6 different countries and winning them all, yet somehow he's still seen as an underdog, just like Andy Ruiz was. And, you know, the thing is with AJ, he's become a bit of a, you know, fan's favourite up until the BLM movement, kind of like how Conor McGregor was in the UFC, but now it's becoming quite apparent that the guy isn't as good as people think, and there are actually better boxers out there, you know. And the thing is, Usyk is cruiserweight, and he's come up to this division, and he easily dominated AJ. It was actually very embarrassing, and, you know, a very poor fight. And it's the reason why I've chosen not to cover too much of the actual fight in terms of a fight analysis, a review and whatnot, because it was just poor. It was such a poor performance from AJ, and Usyk just absolutely dominated him in all ways. He just looked like a different class, a different league of boxer. AJ to me looked like a bodybuilder boxing. That's that. Kind of like the strongman trying to do the boxing with Eddie, Hathor and whatnot. It was just a poor performance. So according to the stats, Usyk actually landed more total punches than AJ with 148 to 123. He also was more precise of the two opponents, landing 28% of those punches thrown compared to AJ's 19.2%. Those punches were the most from any opponent Josh has ever had. So, you know, he really was taking a beating, and you know, just Usyk just was relentless. He just wasn't giving up, and he just constantly hitting him. So he certainly wasn't dancing around him and hitting and not getting hit. Usyk closed the show by landing, you know, a total of 29 punches in round 12, the most, like I said, by any opponent AJ's ever faced. So AJ was completely rattled and surprised. And what's so funny here, where you see his face, where he's genuinely shocked and surprised that he lost by points. The guy was deluded. You know, he fought shit. You know, I'm just going to be raw on that one. Like, Usyk was such a better fighter and boxer in all aspects. He completely outclassed AJ. This surprising victory for Usyk has now messed up the potential undisputed unification between Tyson and AJ. It's completely in tatters, to be honest. And, you know, I'm glad it is, because I don't think AJ is good enough to fight Fury. I think Usyk's proven that AJ doesn't deserve those belts. He's now lost twice. He's lost his belts twice. And he may say, oh, well, you know, I've got an opportunity to become 3 times world champion. And yeah, maybe he has. And, you know, if he can win them back, fair play to him. But, you know, he's lost to 2 underdogs. One overweight, one obviously a lot lighter than him, and seen as someone who wouldn't have the power behind him and the ability to do that. And he did it with, you know, with such effortless effortless elements to it. It's just so impressive. And Usyk's now become only the third boxer in history, may I add, after Holyfield and David Haye, to win world titles at both the cruiserweight and the heavyweight at the same time. So congratulations, Usyk. You're a legend. You're really funny. You're such a talented athlete. Ukraine should be proud. One good thing is though, AJ is a good sportsman. He can take a beating, and he can be humble and chilled after, unlike Wilder. So fair play to you there, AJ. So he now moves to 19-0, and what's next for Usyk? There's so many things flying out there at the moment. Who's he going to fight? Is it going to be Joyce here? Is it going to be Fury? Is it going to be Wilder? There's a lot going on at the moment, and I'll be honest with you, it's a bit sketchy in parts. And switching back to Fury just for a second, the WBC have actually proposed that the winner for obviously the Wilder and Tyson fight should actually fight Dillian White next. So I mean, that could be happening, and I think White definitely deserves a chance on that. It would be an interesting fight. Even Eddie Hearn goes on to say, imagine that fight going. It'd be pretty good. And then the winner can fight the Usyk versus Anthony Joshua fight too, because like I haven't mentioned, AJ's obviously activated the clause for an immediate rematch of Usyk naturally, which is likely to happen in spring in 2022, because they're going to want to have that. But we're looking at, realistically, Robert Helenius. He could emerge as the first opponent for the winner of the Usyk versus AJ rematch, with the WBA set to decide their mandatory challenger very soon. But the victorious champion must then fulfill the mandatory defences of his titles, with Helenius potentially next in line to challenge after he overcame that win against Kalnacki in the WBA Eliminator. So are we ever going to see an AJ versus Fury fight? Is it going to be Helenius against the winner of Usyk versus Fury? Who knows? There's so much that could happen. I'll be honest, I don't want to see a Fury versus AJ fight. I'm not interested now. I want to see top fighters and boxers against one another, and I don't think AJ's got the substance behind him and the ability to take on Fury. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, guys and girls, I hope you liked today's video. Thanks for watching, and as always, if you like the video, remember to either like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you all soon. Amigo and Finis, signing out.